Well, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here in Calgary on Treaty 7 land. Today, I wanted to spend a few minutes talking about jobs, and specifically the abysmal record of Premier Smith and the UCP, which we've seen play out in a couple of ways today. The first is their announcement on youth unemployment, and the second is where we ended up with the federal government announcement on the major projects office and on the first major projects, both of which point to huge missed opportunity on the part of this provincial government. So let's start with the fact that our unemployment rate here in Alberta is absolutely abysmal. Unemployment has increased from 5.5% when Danielle Smith took office to 8.5% today. It's nearly as high as it was in the middle of the global energy recession in 2016. She's touching the worst numbers that Rachel Notley had. Youth unemployment remains particularly stubbornly high, 17% among young men, nearly 20%. 1 in 5 young men unable to find a job in Alberta. So we had the Premier and her government just last week announce a massive jobs plan, which didn't actually do anything to create the environment for jobs in Alberta. Then the bad unemployment rates came out, and so a week after announcing their massive jobs plan, they announced a massive youth unemployment plan, which was not part of the jobs plan they announced last week. They're making it up as they go along. And today's plan is just throwing more money at a problem that the Premier is not willing to actually solve. Let's remember that the UCP announced a massive jobs youth unemployment plan in 2021. The Auditor General has said that they have not reported on the results. We don't know how many jobs were created, and what we do know is it clearly didn't work. So here's the real problem. The Premier is undermining stability and investor confidence and business confidence in Alberta. All her talk of separatism means that no one wants to invest $1 in Alberta if they don't know what country they're investing in. Her endless fighting with the federal government. Remember, it was this week where if her 9 items were not met, if we did not get plastic straws back, gall darn it, she was going to cause a national unity crisis. Well, she caused the national unity crisis, but she stopped talking about plastic straws. We haven't met any of her 9 conditions. She hasn't actually gotten anything accomplished in the work that she is attempting to do here. Even all we've seen on public education in the last few weeks, from forcing every girl over 12 to prove her sex if she wants to try out for a school team, to banning books, undermines people's confidence. People don't want to invest here if they think our public education system for their kids is not worth it. People are looking for opportunities further afield. So what the Premier needs to do is really look in the mirror, as we've heard Conservatives say to Albertans before. But she needs to look in the mirror and understand that her concept of political ideology over good government is hurting Alberta's economy in a very good way. Conservatives are supposed to be good with the economy. They're supposed to be good with money. And Danielle Smith is neither of those things. So on youth unemployment, what do we need to do? We need to understand that we've got a crisis here, and we're not going to solve it with a few press conferences. We're going to solve it by creating an environment where jobs are created for young people. And yes, there are some policy things we need to do. Absolutely, we need to look at the low-wage temporary foreign worker program. I heard the Premier talk about that for the first time today. We've known it's a problem for months, if not years. We need to reinstate the summer temporary employment program, where we allow young people to get summer jobs, to get some experience in the work that they're doing. And we have to recognize the fact that in 2 weeks, Alberta will have the lowest minimum wage in Canada. And people argue that if you increase minimum wage, it increases unemployment. Well, here's the thing. We've got the lowest minimum wage, so there's no incentive for people to work for minimum wage because they can't afford to live on minimum wage. And we have amongst the highest unemployment in Canada, the second highest unemployment in the country. That's called stagflation. It is the result of exceptionally poor management of the economy, and that's exactly what we have with the UCP. Now, as for the major projects announcement that the Prime Minister made this morning, there's a lot to like there. There's a lot to like that the major projects office is in Calgary. That's a huge signal as to where the economic growth of this country is from. And certainly for the last 15 years, I've been lobbying for offices like that to be in Calgary. And I'm very happy to see that that has come to fruition. And certainly there are two projects on the list of projects that are still being considered that are really important to the Alberta economy: the Pathways Plus and the Port of Churchill projects. Conspicuous in its absence was a commitment to a major pipeline project. Why? Because there is no major pipeline project on the table. And this comes right back to Premier Smith. A few months ago, she stood with the CEO of Enbridge and said, yes, we're going to sign an MOU and we're going to bring back Northern Gateway. And the CEO of Enbridge at that press conference said, well, that's not what this MOU is about. Which again shows the utter incompetence of this government in managing complex economic files. Because here's the thing. The federal government has made an important step by saying that they're going to clean up the process, they're going to make it easier to get approvals. And in fact, the Prime Minister today used a line that I've used for many, many years in public life. The role of government isn't to say no. The role of government isn't to ask, why do you want this? The role of government is to say, how can we do this? And I was happy to hear that line from him. But the policy stability only goes so far. We need a government that is willing to roll up its sleeves and do the work. It means working with industry to find private investors who are willing to make these kinds of investments. It means assisting industry in finding global markets for oil and gas and for other products. It means working with Indigenous communities to ensure that they get the benefit from these projects. It means working with landowners across the line on a pipeline, for example, to make sure that they too get the benefit. It means a government that's willing to do the work. And I'll remind you all that even if Danielle Smith got her 9 things, or lately it's 3 things that she needs, that in fact Jason Kenney didn't have any of those 3 things. And in the last 6 years, we have not seen 1 mile of pipeline advanced or promoted or approved under this UCP government. The last person to build a pipeline in Alberta was Rachel Notley, because we know how to roll up our sleeves and get the work done. And that's how we get pipelines built. That's how we get major projects built. That's how we build the economy. That's how we create jobs in Alberta. And unfortunately, we have a government that's doing none of those things. So with that, I'm happy to take questions.
All right, we'll start with questions in the room.
You guys got anything?
All right, we will move to questions in the line. So just a reminder to use the raise hand function to get into the question queue. Our first question is from Lisa Johnson. Lisa, your line should be open.
You're not up yet, Lisa. There you are.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, we got you.
Okay, great. I wanted to also ask you about kind of related to the relationship between Mark Carney and Danielle Smith today. The UCP has been combative with Ottawa since it was formed. It's that the policy has been like a foundation of their political strategy. What do you make of the fact that Smith is saying she's never found such common ground with the Prime Minister before? She's optimistic after the meeting with Carney. I mean, what does it suggest to you, this kind of shift in the UCP's approach and her approach? What does that suggest to you about her political strategy?
Well, I'm happy she's happy, I suppose. But let's be clear, she's never searched for common ground. She's always preferred the fight to the win. That's the difference between her and me. I will work with anyone, and I have proven that I will work with anyone to advance the best interest of Albertans. She prefers to fight. So let's remember that it wasn't 5 months ago that she put down a list of 9 criteria that if not met, she would cause a national unity crisis. She said it, not me. 2 weeks ago, she put out a beautiful video. It was very well done. Kudos to her production department, where she laid out 3 criteria that must be met. And I actually don't disagree with those 3 things. They're just a starting point, but they need to get done. She got 0 of her 9 things, and yet now she's super happy because she's realized that her combative fighting posture has hurt Alberta, and it's hurt the Alberta economy. So I'm happy to see she's smiling again, but I'd much rather see her doing the work.
Do you have a follow-up, Lisa?
Yeah, and this is on something completely unrelated.
I'm ready.
I knew you would be. This morning, the Premier was asked about the ongoing bargaining impasse with the teachers.
Mm-hmm.
She basically presented a kind of zero-sum game to teachers. Either you can get a heftier pay boost, or you can get a hiring pledge to pay for more teachers. The implication being you can't have both.
Yeah.
What do you make of her stance? Oh, and she, of course, pointed to the budget and the deficit that we're facing. But what do you make of that comment to teachers amid the bargaining impasse that we're in right now?
The framing on this is amazing. It could be in a book about how not to negotiate when you've got a strike on right in front of you. She has no idea what she's doing. So, Premier, let me make this easier for you. You decided to increase our dependency on oil and gas. You caused the largest deficit swing that we've ever seen in Alberta. You chose to spend the least amount per student in Canada on education. You have given up the right to say there's no more money. Imagine what $100 million on Turkish Tylenol would do to hire new teachers. Imagine what the billions of dollars wasted on healthcare restructuring would do to hire new teachers. Danielle Smith is very bad with money, and it shouldn't be teachers, parents, and students who pay the price for the fact that she doesn't know how to budget.
All right, our next question comes from Sean Amato, City News. Sean, your line should be open.
Hello. So for years, the UCP has blasted the NDP as being pro-Trudeau, pro-Carney, that sort of thing. So I understand it's a bit of a strange shift here for the Premier to be saying she's having the best meetings ever with the Prime Minister. How do you feel about that strange shift that we're seeing now?
Well, you know, perhaps we now have the Smith-Carney alliance, in addition to the Smith-Trump alliance that we've had for a long time. Now, this is just silly name-calling. The point is the Premier has proven that she's able to work with no one. And we need a Premier who's able to work with everyone. This government has always shown it would rather fight than win. And now, they've finally figured out we need to win, but they don't know how to win. They've never tried to win. They just try to pick fights. So we'll see if this change lasts more than a day or two. I doubt it will. But certainly this is also the fallout that she's had from supporting separatism. Remember, it was she who said, if you don't give me everything I want, I will provoke a national unity crisis. She's provoked a national unity crisis already. It has blown back on her in unbelievable ways. Albertans are so angry with her right now for threatening the future of the country. She's got to figure out a way to portray herself as Captain Canada. But Albertans are so much smarter than that. We see through her games. We know the truth of who she is. We know she wants to break this country up for her own political gain. And certainly, who's going to negotiate with you or make deals with you if that's been your stand? So if she has a new attitude, if she actually wants to win, if she actually wants projects, if she actually wants to build Canada, she's got to prove it with more than a smiley video.
Do you have a follow-up, Sean?
Yeah, the leader of the PQ is in your hometown of Calgary today.
Oh, is he?
Yeah, so he's talking about Quebec separatism and how that relates to Alberta separatism. What do you make of that? Do you think that there are some things that Albertans can learn from Quebec separatists in terms of getting a better deal, a grand bargain, if you will, with Ottawa?
Here's what we can learn from Quebec separatists. In the late 1960s, Montreal was the financial and economic capital of Canada. It was one of the central economic powerhouse cities in the world. As soon as separatism reared its ugly head, nearly 400 companies moved their head offices out of Montreal. There's a reason CPKC is in downtown Calgary and not in Montreal anymore. There have been 40 plus years, nearly 50 years of economic malaise in Quebec because of separatism. So if that's what Danielle Smith wants, I hope she goes and listens to the leader of the PQ.
Okay, we'll do one last pass for questions. All right, and that concludes our press conference. Thanks, folks.
Thanks, everyone.